Today we're going to be talking about qualifications for leaders, and then we're going to look at some choices you need to make as a leader of a group. First, what is it that we're looking for? First, the most important thing in the group is going to be what? The leader you choose in your churches or wherever you come from. Whoever you choose as a leader is going to make a critical difference as to how that group actually comes out. Here are some of the qualifications. I was actually in a church, and this church said a very interesting thing. If you're going to start a group or do something like that in the church, don't pick the most qualified person. Don't pick somebody who is this elder that everybody knows, that has all this Bible experience or whatever. Find somebody that has a real passion for that particular topic, because that's what's going to make all the difference in the world. You know, you can have an elder and submit to the pastor, they're going to take on this particular thing, but they're really not that interested in it, but they can teach a Bible study, right? How well is that going to work? Not nearly as well as you find somebody that has just this tremendous passion for this particular situation. You don't want somebody that this is going to be a stepping stone for their ministry in the church. They're here, they're just doing this because then they'll get promoted to something else in the church. You want proven spiritual leadership that is under spiritual authority. Who knows what spiritual authority means? It means that the way God works is there's God, then He has people under Him who might be your pastor or somebody like that, then maybe you're under them. And the person above you does what God tells them to do, and you do what that person tells you to do, and so on and so forth. In Christianity, what's one of our problems? We all want to be the one running the show, and we say, I just work for God, right? Well, if you just work for God, God has put other people in authority over you to make this whole thing work and function. We want this person to have good relationship skills, meaning they can relate to people, that they're good organizational skills. They're a servant, not a controller. They're here to help those people. Deep compassion for people, can accept everyone. They're not judgmental. Spiritually and psychologically healthy. They have solid victory in their life. What do you mean by that? Let's just say this is a drug alcohol group, and you have someone leading the group that has 1 week of sobriety. What do you think? Hopefully they don't fall if that's what you're going to do. But they need to have some progress that they've made, and they have won this particular battle because that leader is going to have to help other people in that particular area. And this is what we call in the Bible an elder or a bishop. Now let me explain something, okay? We have in the church somebody, and that's what we're talking about right now, who is going to be head over this ministry. Then we're going to have the actual support group leaders and so on and so forth, and we're not going to require as much of them as we do this person who's over the support group ministry in the church. That's what we're talking about. And listen to what the Bible has to say. This is 1 Timothy 3:2. A bishop then must be blameless, the husband of one wife, vigilant, sober, of good behavior, given to hospitality, apt to teach, not given to wine, no striker, not greedy of filthy lucre, but patient, not a brawler, not covetous, one that ruleth well his own house, having his children in subjection with all gravity. For if a man know not how to rule his own home, how shall he take care of the church of God? Not a novice, lest being lifted up with pride, he fall into the condemnation of the devil. Moreover, he must have a good report of them that are without, lest he fall into reproach and the snare of the devil. And now we have about the same thing in Titus. In Titus 1:7 says, For a bishop must be blameless as the steward of God, not self-willed, not soon angry, not given to wine, no striker, not given to filthy lucre, but a lover of hospitality, a lover of good men, sober, just, holy, temperate, holding fast the faithful word as he hath been taught, that he may be able by sound doctrine to both exhort and to convince the gainsayers. Now that's quite a bit, isn't it? But we're talking about somebody over that entire ministry in the church. And those are qualifications of what? What does bishop really mean? Pastor, elder, leader, somebody that is going to take this entire ministry that we're talking about here, maybe a whole counseling center, maybe just a support group ministry, and those are the qualifications that the Bible sort of sets out. Now, how about facilitators? Because that's what this class is primarily about. We're talking about leaders over the entire ministry, now facilitators. What do we need? With somebody that has some reasonable spiritual maturity, in other words, that they know their Bible and they've been reasonably a Christian for a while. They're qualified, competent, and teachable. We're not expecting everybody to have all the answers. That's why we have this class, right? Why would we have this class if you have to know everything to get started? And realize we also will have assistant support group leaders. And these are people that are in training through on-the-job training. Faithful under spiritual authority. Why do I always say that? Remember what was one of the liabilities of groups? You could split the church. Somebody has a group and they get everybody on their side and they get to know all these people and they say, I can do this better than the pastor. So they can split the church. A burden and desire to help people. And particularly for that particular problem. Who are going to be these people who normally have this desire? How about people that went through the same problem? That they've struggled through and they've gotten some victory and because they want to help. Sort of interesting, we're obviously not there, but I have a client who is struggling with gambling addiction. You know what he'd really like to do with his life? Become a gambling addiction counselor. Because we do have one problem right now, he hasn't quit gambling. So maybe we're going to have to wait a little bit and get him some victory and get him some help a bit before he can help other people. He probably is going to have to win this total thing in his life and win that sort of battle of saying, well, you know, even if I just spend a little bit of money, you know, I might win big and that'll make up for some of my losses. Somehow he's going to have to get past that before we could probably use him, work with a gambling addictions group. Don't you think so? Same idea. Previous experience leading groups is desirable but not necessary. Some people already have experience. Obviously, if they already have the experience, they're going to be more confident. They're not going to struggle as much getting going. But what do we usually do? We'll have you sit in a group or participate in a group like you do in this class. And that's going to get you the experience to be able to start leading groups. It's not the first group you've ever seen and you're going to make it up as you go. You've been in a group at least, so you have some idea. Called by God. This is important because if you're not called by God, how long is this thing going to last? Until you get tired of it. Until the first person challenges your leadership. Until the group dwindles a little bit. But if you know that God called you, what do you also know? That God will provide. Experience in the recovery process. The suggestion is if we're talking something heavy like drug, alcohol, or a sexual addiction or something like that, you probably need a year to 2 years sobriety or something to know that you really recovered and that you're still not struggling, being triggered all the time. You need solid victory. And this is what we call in the Bible a deacon. In most churches, how is this broken out? In our church, we have elders and deacons. Okay, elders are what? They are the people who are the upstanding people in the church who pretty much are on the boards. Elders would also be pastors, associate pastors, and so on. And deacons are people that help out in the church. Remember the story in the early church where the people weren't being taken care of and they ordained deacons. The deacons were the ones that served the food, that helped the people that were hurting, and so on and so forth. And that's what a deacon is in the church. It's somebody that helps in the church. And isn't that what a facilitator should be? This is 1 Timothy 3:8. Likewise, must the deacons be grave, not double-tongued? Why is that? What if the leader is talking to other people about the people in the group and not maintaining confidentiality? Are we going to have a problem? Not given to much wine. What if they're drunks? Not going to work too good, right? Not greedy for filthy lucre. What if they're trying to make money off this? You know, they sell Amway, and they want this group so they can sell everybody in the group Amway. Don't think it'd be a good idea. Holding the mystery of the faith with a pure conscience, meaning they've got some victory in their life. And let these first be proved, then let them use the office of a deacon, being found blameless. Even so, their wives must be grave, not slanderous. Again, why? Do you want the wife talking about everything that's going on in the group? Sober, that's good. Faithful in all things. Let the deacons be the husbands of one wife, ruling their children and their household well, that have used the office of a deacon well, purchased to themselves a good degree and great boldness in the faith which is in Jesus Christ. Let me give you some examples now of support group leaders, and you're going to find out this can be a very wide variety of different people. And these are all people that I know that have been support group leaders in the past or are currently support group leaders. One particular person, and they were really a people pleaser. And guess what happened? They got a lot of people on their side, and they began telling the people that the pastor really didn't care for people, and they split the church. Is that the kind of support group leader we're looking for, or the kind of leader over this ministry we're looking for? True story. A lady who came to our codependency group over 10 years ago as a very heavy codependent. In fact, she was such a heavy codependent that if you would run into her and knock her down, she would say, "I'm sorry." Today, she still runs that group very successfully, and the group is still going 10 years later. But see, she started out in the group, then she became an assistant leader, and then she became the leader over the group. Do you think maybe she has a passion for that group? Maybe a passion for people. If you go to that group today and you walk in, you haven't been there for 5 years, she'll remember your name and say, "Oh, it's so great to see you. It's so wonderful. You honor us to be here." Lady who came out of an extremely rough life. She's now saved and has compassion for those who are addicted in the same way. So she can help those people. Here's one that's very different. This guy is a rough preacher. I mean, he lays it on the line and he's going to tell you the way it is. He actually runs a huge support group ministry. They don't even do it like support groups. He does more preaching than he does the rest of the stuff, but it's ministering to people and helping people, and they get all sorts of people from the jails that come out of the jails that come to their ministry today. They have a very large ministry, but they minister in the same way like a support group, only sort of in a different fashion, and maybe we're teaching you right here. Another situation. I actually took over this guy's ministry when I was in the Air Force, because he had divorced his wife for another lady, and they didn't think that probably was a very good thing for the church. Happened to be the pastor's brother. Got a really big spanking. Lost 3 different car dealerships and everything else, and just lost it all. I happened to be visiting about 15 years later. He was back in the church. He had this huge divorce recovery support group. Like 200 people in his support group ministry that he had put together in that church after he finally worked through those issues. So when I say God uses different people in different ways, but the core thing is, it's that compassion, that caring, that is the most important thing there is. And then you have to have a certain amount of stability, a certain amount of getting a hold of things there. But one of the things we really want to look at today are decisions you're going to have to make about your own facilitating support groups, how you're going to lead your group, and what your group is going to look like. Because there are flavors of this, and everybody leads groups sort of in a slightly different way. So these are some of the questions you as a leader are going to have to ask yourself. Okay, the first one is, how responsible are you going to be for leading this group? I'm talking about, are you going to pretty much let the group lead the group? There's a continuum. On this side, let's call a laissez-faire leader. Their idea is, well, I'm here to make sure the group doesn't fall apart, but tell you, what would you guys like to do? And you pretty much let everyone lead the group, everyone have their part in the group. You're not very concise, you're not setting the framework of the group, you're pretty much letting the people run their own group because maybe you believe that that's the best way to get them to come out and to get involved. Versus clear in the other spectrum, remember we call therapy groups? Where you are that expert, or you're the person that understands the situation, and it's your job to bring the success in the group. Can you see that continuum from one to the other? And you're going to have to decide how far you are in that particular area. As an example, if the leader is responsible for the results, then how much are you probably going to be teaching? How much are you going to be controlling what goes on in the group? A lot, right? What if everyone's responsible for themselves? Like a leader might say, hey, I'm here to learn myself. What you get out of this group is up to you. Totally different approach, isn't it? That's usually like encounter groups. Now, what's the problem? If you're too strong in a group, if you take over the group and you run this group, this is your group and you're going to run it the way you're going to run it, what do you think happens? Lack of motivation on the people. Well, he's going to work it out. If you get any help, it's his problem. He's going to have to show me. He's going to have to draw me out. He's going to have to do all the work, isn't it? If you do that, you're going to be doing all the work of the group. And if somebody doesn't get what they want, who are they going to blame? You? Responsible. I'm suggesting there's an answer someplace in the middle, and you're going to have to decide where that is for you and what works for you. And the leaderless role, if you go clearly to that extreme, what does it do? The people aren't really protected, are they? They really don't feel that safe in the group because there's no one there to stand up for them if the whole group turns on them and chews them up and spits them out. So the group doesn't feel as safe. But you're going to have to decide that. Where are you going to be? How do you fit? And some of it's going to be your personality and what your talents are and what God's called you to do as to how you decide that. The next is the degree of structure in the group. You can have a group with almost no structure. People show up when they want to show up. They leave when they want to leave. Talk when they want to talk. We really don't have a lot of rules in this group. And sort of, we hang out together, right? Well, that's a group, isn't it? Hanging out together? Could be. Other groups can be very well planned. The leader comes in and says, today we got two things we're going to do. We're going to do this exercise. Everybody, get your piece of paper out and we're going to do this, or we're going to do that, or this is what's going to happen. And they have it very structured. There are particular things that they're asking for the people to do in the group. They got their plan when they walk in. They're going to execute their plan. In T groups or other groups like that, many times they let the group determine the structure. Why is that good? Why is that bad? Well, it's good if they come up with a good structure and it actually works. But what if they're just in conflict trying to determine what this group is going to look like? If there's no structure, who are they going to blame? Probably the leader. See, again, in all these things, what do we know? There's a balance between being too far this way or too far that way. And that's just the reality of the situation. How spontaneous are you going to be if the leader has this total structure and it's all in concrete and this is the way it is? It's a balance of spontaneity versus structure. Too much structure, people feel controlled and confined. So what are some recommendations about structure? First thing is we need a balance in that. We don't want to have too much structure. We don't have too little structure. We want to be able to at least draw the members out that tend to blend in. We want to confront manipulation. We want to deal with feelings. Express impatience, boredom, delight, enthusiasm. These are things the leader can do within that structure to help what's going on here. Express the members' feelings. Ask members for feedback. You see, all the things I'm mentioning here are sort of in the middle. But these are things as a leader you're going to want to learn how to do. Setting up specific role-playing situations if that's something you feel is appropriate to your style. Ask someone to act out their feelings in a symbolic way. I mentioned that last time in a group I was in that I was called on to do that. Confront the group when it's stuck. If it's not moving, you say, do you think we're getting any place? Well, what are we going to do about that? Invite people to work on their problems. Providing illicit support for other people. Let's all gather around and pray for Joe. He's got this problem, let's do that. Direct attention to verbal as well as nonverbals. Give members feedback. And push people to test their limits. Why don't you lead this time? No. Get the idea? Next question we got to decide, and you'll have to decide for yourself, is self-disclosure. How much are you going to disclose about yourself in the group? And again, these are all continuums, aren't they? What's one continuum? Well, I ought to disclose as much about myself as anybody else. And what does that do to you? You're no longer the facilitator, are you? You're no longer the leader. You now are one of the members of the group. What's the other one? There's some theories of counseling that deal with transference, what we'll talk about in a minute here, where they feel the leader shouldn't show any emotion, shouldn't react at all, because then people will place their own ideas, that's called transference, on them and react to them, and the leader can use the transference to help the people in the group. So we have that entire spectrum. And again, what do we believe in? Someplace in the middle, that you ought to self-disclose in certain reasons and for certain times. Here's some criteria for self-disclosing. The first, it has to fit in whatever your model is going to be, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. It has to be genuine. Don't just say things or tell things about yourself for no reason and that you don't really feel it. What type of group is this? Obviously, in a therapy group for domestic violence perpetrators, you're probably not going to be telling your stories when you beat up your wife, are you? Probably wouldn't be a good idea. But where it's more of an encounter type of group, or you're trying to get people to come out and to be themselves, you might tell you some stories about when you were afraid. Or you might tell some stories about when you were struggling with things. What stage is this group in? When are you going to have to do more self-disclosure out of the stages we've already talked about? How about the initial stage? So people feel comfortable. What are you disclosing? Does it fit in with the group? Or are you just telling stories about yourself that has absolutely nothing to do with the group? What's happening in the group right now? When is self-disclosure probably most appropriate? When you're talking about something, it fits in right here, people aren't really saying anything, so you talk about yourself to help them open up some. What's the purpose and how does it help somebody else in the group? What's the critical thing here? This isn't your group for you to grow and for you to get straightened out and to work on your issues. If you want that, go to another group where you're a member of the group and get your help there. If you're the facilitator, you're here to Facilitate the people in your group. And the biggest criteria is this really helping somebody in your group? Here's some guidelines. Do not use the group to solve your own issues. Disclose only to help the group or a group member. Disclose what you are feeling about this group's process. Because, you know, I just feel dead today. This is the dullest group I've been in for years. You know, what are we going to do? Consider the effects on all members. Do you see a problem? What if what I'm disclosing to help this person over here is going to trigger this person over here and cause them all sorts of problems? I'm going to have to weigh that out and determine how much you want to reveal about yourself, so you don't end up just being another member of the group. You're still the facilitator of the group. Now, transference and countertransference. What it means is that, let's say if I take the role of an authority figure in this group, and I have people in the group that have problems with authority figures, how are they going to react? To me, like they're going to react to their dad or their pastor, whoever they're having their struggle with. Now, if that's one of your theories of counseling, and you're willing to take that on and deal with the conflicts in the group, fine. But countertransference means, because you're like my mom, I have issues with you. Do you think we want to bring that into the group? Not really. Do you understand? If I have issues, we'll talk about it or something. I've got to watch out that I'm not being triggered by you because you said something like my mom used to say to me, or whatever my issues are. Because who are we trying to help? The people in the group. And you can use that, but the way you use transference is you help the person see that that's what's going on. You know, do you know why you might be feeling that way? What do you think? Do you ever have anyone in your background or anyone like that that is affected? Why are you affected? Why are you feeling this way? You take it out, you lay it on the table, you let the group deal with it, you try to understand it. That's what we're really talking about here, and we're talking about transference and countertransference. And your role as the leader is going to determine that. What are some different roles you could have the way people see you as a leader? As an expert, as an authority figure, a super person, a friend, a lover. Last two I don't think we want, do we? You're having relationships or something with somebody in the group, think that's a good idea? Or you're just their best friend? Now that's a problem, okay? Transference feelings need to be brought out in the open. Countertransference should not. Now, the role of a good leader. Let's look at that, and then we're going to talk about your model of leadership and what you might suggest that is. A good leader will do some of the following: initiate interactions, direct the activities of the group, create a climate that's safe and is open to exploration. It was that people can explore what's going on in their lives in a safe way, be willing to share their personhood, provide direction in the initial stage. Later on, we want the group to be able to work and function by itself without a lot of leadership there. Sensitive and active in leading, be able to pick up issues that people have. You must protect, clarify, summarize, integrate, help the group become aware of its own dynamics. Must be a model for the group, and confront in a non-defensive way. Last thing we need to decide on is what's going to be the theoretical model for this group. As I said, on one extreme, we would have more of a Freudian model here. We're using transference and countertransference, an analytical type of a model. On the other hand, we'd have a totally laissez-faire model. What should our model be? What do you think? Because you're going to operate according to your specific model. What's that? How you see people. how you see life. Your core values are going to determine how you think a group is going to be most effective and how we're going to help those people. And we need to demonstrate that. I'm going to suggest a particular model to you. It's called the Christian model. Do you think if you're a Christian counselor, a Christian support group leader, it might be good if the principles you're using in the group are biblical principles and that's how you look at people in your group and how you function? In fact, if you want an overall model, go to your Bible and study how Jesus dealt with his disciples, because the disciples were his group, right? And do what Jesus would do. Remember, what would Jesus do? You've all heard that? Well, that's what we want to look at. Let's just look at a few of those, and you can add a lot more to this, but I'm just going to give you a few of those. First, what do we believe? All have sinned and come short of the glory of God. There are no superhumans, not even the facilitator. So therefore, don't act like you have it all together and you don't have any problems, and there's nothing that's a problem. We're all under authority and all under submission, right? Jesus' disciples were under his authority, and he was responsible for leading them and helping them to grow and helping them to work through things. But did he control them? No, he did not. He let them make their own choices, and sometimes they were not even very good choices. The leader is the servant of the group. Your job there is to help them. And even if, when you're struggling yourself, they fall asleep on you, do you cuss them out? No, Jesus didn't do that, did he? Tell the truth in love. Love means having the other person's best interest in mind, that you're not going to be some wimp and some people pleaser, that you never confront anyone, that you never deal with the real issues in the group. We're all part of one body, the body of Christ, and we're accountable to each other. So other people in the group have a responsibility for the others in the group. We all need to be willing to confess our faults one to another and repent so we can be healed. So if you mess up as a group leader, what do you need to do? Model apologizing, model asking for forgiveness if you messed up. We're all responsible for ourselves and for our choices. There are consequences. We are not victims. We all have equal and infinite worth. Doesn't make a difference how that person in the group is struggling. Even if they don't have a very high IQ or they don't come up with good things, that person is worth just as much as the other members in the group, and you need to draw them out. Loving God and each other is the ultimate goal of the group and the ultimate goal of your leadership. And finally, the goal of the group is salvation. Salvation means complete wholeness. We're here to help everybody become everything they can possibly be. See that model? And I'd like you to watch as we have our group, as we try to put things together, and see how much are we able to do that and how much are we able to function in that way to help everybody in our group. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you that you gave us a model of group leadership, and you gave us Bible verses to tell us what we need to be like to be a leader, a facilitator in these groups. And we ask, Lord, you give us the wisdom, you would teach us, and you would help us to grow into that model as we grow more and more like you. In Jesus' name, amen. It says REC in the right-hand corner in red.
Okay, so we're on Unit 4. We have a couple of new people in our group, so I'd like to introduce yourself.
I'm Kristen.
Kristen, and where are you from, Kristen?
Wellington.
Wellington, okay. And we'll just kind of go around and say the names of the people so you know who everybody is.
I'm Amber.
I'm Troy.
Mike. Casey.
And our other new member? Okay, and you're from Wellington as well?
Yes.
Okay. Well, nice
I'm
to meet
Linda.
you.
Mike.
Okay. All right, well, on Unit 4, I'm just going to give right into it. What are some of the things that stuck out to any of you? It was something about knowing by experience. And what does that mean to anybody here?
I liked in section 4 where it talks about how God, like God always, God wants us to be along with Him as He does His work. He wants, and I was reminded of like when, even though I'm not a parent, I've seen situations where where dads take their kids to work, and that's exactly how we are with God. God wants us along with Him as He does His work.
Wow, that's good. Okay. All right. Anybody else have anything else on experiencing God?
One thing I think that we talked about a little bit earlier was the idea that this book is more written for men than it is for women.
Yes, we did.
Because how do men tend to experience, how do men build relationships? Doing things together. We already said that, didn't we? Yes. You know, but other people, we all can experience God that way. But women normally talk more in their relationships. As more, they can just spend time just talking and never really do a whole lot or accomplish a lot together. And so that sort of struck me. This is sort of the section that sort of told me that this book is maybe fits the man's model a bit more than the women's model.
Right. Except for when we got to the part about worshiping. Okay, on the worshiping, did anybody see anything struck them as different ways to worship? Were you surprised by anything? Or did anything, is there things that you say, oh, well, I do this all the time, or anything like that? Does anyone want to share how they usually worship to God?
I found it really useful to go to, as they recommended, to the back of the book, page 268. I just started reading the names and going to the Bible, and quite frankly, it was significant.
Okay. Was there any particular one that stuck out to you?
No,
Just
I had never done that.
okay, all the different names.
Yeah, it was. I found myself actually worshiping just by reading the names.
Yeah.
Striving.
Okay, well, good. Anybody else have a way that they prefer to worship? Either it wasn't listed here or was listed here?
I know in our church, the singing seems to really be a big thing. A lot of people come to the altar during music.
Oh, okay.
And not so much because of the sermon, but because of the music. So it seems to really move people in our church.
Good. All right. Anybody else? How about individually, like at home or wherever you worship just during the week when you're not in church? Is there anything that struck anybody in here?
Usually means quiet time. If I don't get my quiet time, as I said, I tend to be accomplishing stuff and so on. I have to have that time where I just go out on the deck and get my Bible or something like that and just have the quiet time and then look at the clouds and the lake and all that kind of nice stuff and
Okay, and that refreshes you. Okay. All right. Different ways to love God was on day 3. And what was the main thing on this chapter even? How we show that we love God by doing what? Obeying Him. That's exactly right. So I thought to obey God is when we obey His commandments. Oh, how do we do that? Well, obeying His commandments, I guess, would be to...
That's one of the first questions I asked Christian. What does He want?
Well, I think
nobody ever answered that.
I think things that would glorify Him. I mean, you don't want to do anything that's going to hurt your neighbor or anything like that. So to love God with all your heart, your mind, your soul.
When I had that question, the command part came up.
And did that bother you, the command part?
I just wondered, okay, what does He command? Well, I found Him saying the word command once.
Okay.
In John 14. And He commands, and He does it twice. I command you to love other people.
Very good.
Yeah. That's what I got from that.
So if you're going to love other people, then it's obvious you're not going to
And
do
I found
anything
that
against
hard.
them. You found that hard?
Oh.
Really? Because just certain people that you come
Well,
against?
am I the only one in the group that finds that hard?
Yes, Frank, you are.
No, you're not.
Yeah, I think that's very true for anyone and everyone, either on their job or in their family, or even in their church or work and all that kind of stuff. So, and how do you accomplish getting over that? Anybody have any? Or how do you obey that commandment to love your neighbor?
You gotta love God first, because that's why that's parts first, loving God, because especially as men, we're not capable on our own really of loving people. So unless we know God, we can't love. So we gotta be close to Him first before we can love other people.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives us the ability to love.
Right.
One thing I found to help us if there's somebody at work or somewhere that I am that I'm having negative feelings towards, I pray for that person, and that seems to help.
Right, you can't really hold negative things when you're actually praying positive things for them.
Right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Why don't we obey? I need to say, why don't I obey?
And Troy, why don't you obey? You want to share with the group why you don't obey?
I think sometimes I lose sight of the fact that God loves me. That means He has my best interest in mind. See, if I really believed, now experientially, in actions, not just up here, if I really believed that God was love, like this book is telling us, and everything He told me was in my best interest, and He had more information I did, so He knew what was in my best interest. If I really believed that and really saw that, I think then I would obey.
Okay.
But sometimes I think I lose sight of that, and sometimes I sort of have this idea maybe I'm smarter than He is, or that maybe I have a better answer, or maybe I don't want to do that.
Okay.
And that's why I don't obey or don't do what He wants. Like when He says, go over and talk to that person in the middle of the street and witness to him. Get behind me, devil. Was that God talking to me? Must not have been, right?
It sounds like getting to command.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I think too, going along with that, why we wouldn't obey is because sometimes, it seems like most times, God's that still small voice, and the devil in circumstance is like this big roaring lion. And so when you got all that coming at you, and then just a still small voice, it's easy to ignore that voice and go with what's out here in the open that we see and is getting screamed at us.
That's true.
And so, yeah.
And also a big deal too is fear. It's like when God tells us to do something, we get confirmation, like, okay, confirm this is what you want me to do. And it's like He tells you you're going to do it, and again, like Amber was saying, your circumstances get in the way. It's like, and you're saying, but God, what if this? What if I fail? Blah 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 blah. It's like, if you do what I tell you to do, you will not fail. You will succeed. But it's like, so. I mean, I like that saying. It says, "Always do what you're afraid to do." It's over on that board over there. But and it reminded me in my life because it's like to always. I mean, it's like whenever we're the most afraid of something, do exactly the opposite of what we expect to happen. If we think we're going to fail, prepare like we're going to succeed. If we think that our business is going to go under, prepare like it's not. And so it's like, and that's even a hard thing for me to do, but because fear gets in the way. It's like God wants us to walk in faith, not by fear.
Along with that, I know sometimes I struggle with just trusting when there's a problem or something. I want to go around solving my own issues, and I don't stop and just listen and say, what do you want me to do about this? Because I try to solve my own problems. It's really hard to trust that He'll solve something that He just allowed Him to talk to you and let you know.
And I think also it boils down to like, you're disobedient when the love you have for yourself outweighs the love you have for God and other people.
Yes.
And so you end up acting selfishly, and that's when you get into disobedience.
I think that's very true. I mean, even a lot of that, what we just discussed, basically comes back down to selfishness.
So you say if we have obedience problem, you have a love problem.
Yeah, a self-love problem. Too much.
And sometimes it gets you in trouble.
Yes, a lot of the times.
Oh.
Just this week, we were heading over to pick up my mom for church. And my wife wasn't sure, because that's another answer, I think, is sometimes we're not really sure that it was God speaking.
Okay.
And my wife's sort of the conservative type, and you know, we had the snow, and she was saying, well, we ought to take the pickup. It only has a single cab, but 3 of us in the pickup was going to be really crowded, right? So instead we took the car, and it's a Corolla, so it's very low to the ground, and the snowplow had put from the street a barrier going across the road that goes into her house. And so I blasted through it and tore the bumper cover in 2 different places, which cost us, we had leaves insurance, but still cost us a significant amount of money. And so now the question, well, was God really telling us to pick up? Well, maybe, you know, or something, or at least maybe I didn't hear, don't try and blast through that. But as a guy, you know how this goes,
Yeah. Maybe your wife was just right in the very beginning.
I think she may have been. But she wasn't absolutely sure either, so she didn't push it.
Okay.
But of course, I probably would have said, "Oh, come on! There's almost no snow; it's almost all melted off." You know, I'm sure I could have justified it very nicely.
And she probably knew that's why she didn't go. Okay. Anybody else selfish like him? Okay. How about on day 4 where it says God invites you to join him? What did that mean anything to you, or anybody have a difficulty with that or understanding that?
I thought that was really good, because that's kind of always been a struggle for me, is knowing what God wants me to do, and knowing when to act and when to keep my hand out of things, and when to let other people take care of it, or when I'm supposed to be a part of that. And when it was talking about like just watching and seeing what God's doing, and then you'll know that that's what you're supposed to do, that like kind of cleared it up for me a lot.
Was there a particular experience that you had with that?
Not really, but now it's like I have more of an outlook to go by, to where now I'm just not in constant, I don't want to say confusion, but like not knowing,
Okay.
constantly questioning myself or doubting about it. Now I can look and assess the situation better, I think.
Okay, great. All right. Anybody else? Frank, you look like you have something to say.
Well, the thing that stuck out to me about this one was intimate love relationship with God. So to know what he wants, what he's doing, you got to be in an intimate relationship with him. So, and I always struggled with that.
Okay.
You know, so going back to Unit 3, where it said take a walk.
Right.
Well, I did because the weather was bad. Well, yesterday I took the walk, and I did something I've never done before, and that is I just started speaking out loud to him. And I was kind of looking around, and I would shut up, and when somebody was in the car, because you look goofy.
Yeah, I know.
But I did do that, and it was like talking to my friend.
Oh, wow.
And I can only tell my wife that. So I've never done that. So I'm sure that
Yeah.
it worked.
Well, that's awesome. That's really good. Anybody else?
Yeah, and kind of going along with what you said, it's like every time I think of that, it's like talking to God as you're walking or riding your bike or in your car or whatever. it's like, reminds me of the story of Enoch. You know, it talks about, all we hear about Enoch is that he walked with God, and then all the days of his life, and then we don't hear anything more about that. There's something significant about that, and in each and every one of our lives, we can make the choice to to walk with God, like have that intimate one-on-one connection with God. Where it's just him and me, and like it says in the cool of the day, or in the heat of like, oh great, I got lines out to Timbuktu customers that I've got to take care of or help or whatever. You can still be in connection with God during that point, and it's like, and that my prayer for every single person is that we all have that intimate relationship with God, because it does wonders in a person's life. There's no question about it.
Yeah, and that's probably comes back to that selfishness when we don't take time to do that. That's when we get in trouble. Anybody else?
Dave Fuller talks about God, working in your life, and you're supposed to adapt your life to what He's saying. I had an experience about 6 months ago. Our main worship director quit, and I've got a degree in early childhood, and so I was like, okay, and I started praying about it, and I instantly got the feeling you should do this, and I held off, and someone else took the position, and then Tuesday at Bible study, our pastor's wife brought it up again, and I'm like, okay, I'm listening. And so it takes a while to get used and to adapt your life and to say, okay, I'll do it, that type of thing. And it's just when He invites you to do something, I could find wonders in the last 7 months in new worship if I would have been there.
Wow. That's really cool that you were able to see that and listen to it. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay. All right. We'll move on to
I
David.
got a question.
Yes.
What is God telling each of us, including myself, to do? See, because I think maybe we need to be applying specifically to us what this is saying. And it's saying God will let us know. And that's what I'm hearing Christians. She found out. But how about the rest of us? Do we just all check in her to apply and make I statements in this? What is God telling you to do?
He's been telling me for a really long time to be a counselor, and and I just turned in my application last week. So after like a year and a half. And I finally listened, and I have all kinds of confirmation around me, and I feel really peaceful about it, that that's what I need to do. And so some of us take a little bit longer. Even though we hear it, and we have all that confirmation, you'd have to step out, and then He'll step out with you. But anyway, so that was mine. Anybody else?
Along with the counseling thing, I wanted to be a counselor before I graduated high school. And I got into school, and it was hard for me, and teaching was easy. And sure enough, when I got out of school and I taught, I hated it. I didn't like it. I didn't find enjoyment in it. And so now I'm back in school when I should have been in school, 10 years ago. And so it was definitely, I should listen. It's kind of one of those things that took me a long time to listen.
It's never too late, though. God telling anyone else anything?
You wait and seek God, because I get in the mentality as a man. I want to do things right now. It's like I'm constantly like, what can I do, God? What can I do? It's like he's telling me, wait for me and seek me out, because I've ran ahead of God way too many times in my 30 years of life. And what happens every single time? Like Dr. Reiner talks about, run into a brick wall. It's like, ow, that hurt a little bit. So so it's just waiting God out and saying, okay, God, what are you telling me to do? And don't go until I know for certain it is God and not my flesh is telling me to do it.
Exactly. Wow.
Because he'll give us a piece about what he wants us to do.
Mm-hmm. Right. Anyone else? Is our time up?
We have a little bit of time.
Okay.
Finish. Keep doing what we're doing.
Okay.
And finish videotaping our classes.
Uh-huh.
Finish the courses and just keep doing. Because for me, that's also the thing, because you sort of get a bit weary about doing stuff, and man, this is the how many classes have I taught now, you know, and so on and so forth. But the rule for me has always been, when God has told you to do something, you keep doing it until He tells you to do something different.
Okay.
That's what I've heard the definition of faithful is. Just keep doing it until it tells you to do something else.
Exactly.
You
It
can't
doesn't mean that you just did it and then you were done. It means that you continued and continued and continued until He told you to do something else.
And you don't just keep jumping all over the place. Well, today it was this, and tomorrow it was that, and that's the next day, and the next day. It's because God, in my experience, doesn't operate that way. You know, he didn't make a mistake when He told you to do something yesterday and He changed His mind today.
Right.
That's you because that's me because it got hard, or because there were I didn't like it, or something else like that. It isn't Him changing His mind.
Right. Yeah. That's true.
Along those lines, it's probably finishing is important because maybe we're not ready yet and He wants us to grow. And we got to get through the process of finishing to do whatever it is He's preparing us to do. And that's the part we don't get because we want to get done, but we're still being patient. And
Come on, God, let's go.
And He's saying, no, your heart's not right yet.
Okay, right.
Your heart's got the circumstances, your heart's not right. You got to hang in there and do the work, get the job done, and then you'll be ready for something else.
I've got a question for you, Christine.
Yes.
And that is, can you sort of tell other people, since you're our first student leading the group and so on, how it feels to be the leader? I know you've had some prior experience and so on, but maybe you can help them get a feel of what it's like to actually volunteer and to jump in and to lead a group like this.
Well, actually, it was really easy because I asked God right before, will you just take over and then I'll just sort of say whatever you want me to say.
There you go.
And actually, when I've done facilitating groups, they were things that I knew very well. I mostly just have done childbirth classes. So that was something I knew a lot about. And so this is different because, you know, this isn't something that's like real engraved and that type of stuff. But it's not so bad once you're up here. You just kind of follow along with the book and it's good.
Not terrifying?
No, not at all. I mean, I think sitting over there, it was more terrifying, but when I actually sat here, I was pretty calm. So yeah, anyone who wants to do it next week, who wants to do it next week? Raise your hand, quickly.
Go ahead.
All right, see, there you
I had
go.
2 weeks, so.
So, all right, here we go, and to think about it, right? And maybe if you have 2 weeks, you might get nervous.
Yeah, that's true, but
Yeah, okay.
that gives me 2 weeks to pray. Say, all right,
There you
God.
go. Okay.
2 weeks because we have a break coming in, right?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Okay. All right. So does anyone want to close in prayer?
Anyone close in prayer?
You want to?
I would rather somebody else.
Okay. Amber, you want to close us in prayer?
Well, geez. Lord, I thank you for the eyes of our hearts that you've opened today, God, and that you would continue to do that through each and every day of these next few weeks, God, until we come back, Lord, that you would reveal yourself to us in new ways, that you would show us exactly how much you love us and the ways that you love us, and that you would help us to be teachable, and that you would help us to love others the way that you have loved us, God. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.